Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
Welcome to Subway Sports Talk. My name is Peter Kennedy, and I am your host. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in to SST on Apple Podcasts app, Spotify, and on YouTube. Joining me today, the designated hitters for the biggest designated hitter episode of the year. Maybe some would say this might be the biggest one, the most important one. However, obviously it gets more and more important as the season goes on. But when the designated hitters are here, you know we're talking baseball. And of course, with opening day being 1 day away, of course, we're previewing the Mets and the Yankees and the MLB at large in some spots as well. So joining me, said designated hitters, first and foremost, my friend, Alec Argento. How are you?
So, I'm doing good.
Absolutely. We're doing wonderful, some would say, because it is basically opening day at this point. You know, it's Wednesday when this came out. Maybe you're listening on Thursday, maybe you're listening on Friday, but baseball's actually here. Obviously, we had the World Baseball Classic, we've had spring training, but the regular season, where in New York, the Mets and Yankees are kings, and it's exciting. Also joining us here, Andrew Calagna. We're blessed with your presence. Andrew, how are you today?
Doing great, man. Usually this is the part of the podcast where I would say try to throw you off topic, but I'm so excited about baseball season that I am just ready to dive on in and get the ball rolling here.
So no funny business from you at all.
No, it's ready. It's all serious. This is the big baseball preview podcast, man. You can't be talking about the Rangers power play. I can't be talking about Patrick Kane and Keandre Miller setting the New York Ranger record of 4 points in a period by a New York Rangers defenseman. We can talk about that if you want. Let's just do the hockey. Let's do the hockey talk.
Let's do that hockey.
I don't know what language you're talking.
Didn't the Rangers clinch the old playoffs then too? Huh?
They did.
Look at that. That's hockey talk for you guys. See, you didn't want to do it, and you still did it. Can't teach an old dog tricks, Drew.
Are we done with it?
Yeah, we're done. We're done with that one now.
We're done.
So now we move on to talk about the baseball. But before we do that, obviously, just throw this out there into the ether so everyone's aware that we're aware. Alec and I locked in Wednesday night. Knicks and Heat. The Nets actually care very greatly about the outcome of that game, but Knicks have a big one against the Heat Wednesday. You know, still jockeying for seeding. Still want to make sure they got that spot number 5 locked in. Cavs obviously getting a little further and further with each game that gets off the calendar, but feels pretty good still to be a Knicks fan, though the nerves are there with the Brunson injury, amongst a few other little things. But overall, we're still a 5 seed, and we're happy to watch this team play basketball. So that's it. That's Knicks talk. That's hockey talk. And now it is time to do that MLB preview. We got the Yankees. We got the Mets. And I think I usually ask you guys, who do you want to start with? Because we talk about what we want to talk about before the show, but we never say, oh, what are we going to talk about first? I actually asked you guys. So normally we're like, oh, what are we going to talk about? We're talking about the Yankees first. And I think it's the right decision because, Drew, you and I were on this podcast just about a week ago talking about Anthony Volpe and the prospects of him being sent down, the prospects of him being the Yankee starting shortstop, the prospects of some things in between. The Yankees made a decision that I think you were very happy with. I believe Alec is very happy with. And I'm not sure if there's a Yankee fan out there who isn't happy with this. So we're going to talk about the rotation and the bullpen and the lineup and Aaron Judge, but we have to start off with Anthony Volpe. And I have to start off with saying, are we all aware that it's Anthony Volpe and not Volpe?
Volpe.
It's Volpe.
Volpe? Like he's French?
It's Volpe. And I don't know, and I'm not happy about it, to be frank, either. I'm really not. I heard a podcast, they're talking about Anthony Volpe. Now I even hate myself.
Now you're going to look the camera differently while you say it?
Don't like saying it, but guess what? Apparently, that's how he says it's supposed to be said. I like to say people's names the way they ask it to be said, because I was listening to this podcast. It was the John Boy Talking Baseball, John, as everyone's familiar, and they're saying Volpe, and the main guy, John Boy, right? He's saying Volpe. And I'm like, wow, that's really, that's getting me. Don't love that until he finally said, and yes, I'm emphasizing the pay because that's how he said it's supposed to be said. So I don't know if you guys are aware of this. Sounds like you're not. But before we talk about him as the Yankees shortstop, perhaps, can we get that off the table? Can we get that out of the way? Are we all aware of this? Are we on board? or are we going Volpe no matter what?
It's
Volpe.
What a waste of my time. It's always going to be Volpe. He's going to be 20 years removed. He's going to be a Hall of Famer one day. At his speech, it's Volpe.
What does it take?
This is like Charlize Theron had like an interview recently. Where she's like, "You're all pronouncing my name incorrectly. It's Theron or something." No, it's not. It's Charlize Theron. Or Rihanna is Rihanna. No, it's Rihanna. Everyone's calling you this. This is it. Just accept it. You're in New York.
I'm
That's fair.
pleased with
That's
that
fair.
answer. And I after John Boy said that he's like, no, my name's Volpe, I told myself driving home listening to this podcast, I'm like, all right, I gotta get Volpe out of my mind. Volpe out, get it out. Now I've said it so many times on this podcast already that everyone probably turned this episode off already. So let's move on from that and talk about the new Yankee shortstop, Tony V, as I'm gonna now. So Tony V is called up. In your heart of hearts, we know kind of how Drew felt. Obviously, we did the podcast last week. So, Alec, I'll start with you. In your heart of hearts, did you think this was going to happen? Did you think they'd pull the trigger on Anthony Volpe?
I mean, historically, no, right? Like the Yankees love their service time manipulation and all that stuff. But I mean, he forced their hand, man. That he had one of the best springs I've seen in a long time, outside of Kyle Higashioka of last year, which was incredible. But I didn't think so, but I'm happy that they did. It just seems like the right movement for the organization to treat the players like this. Best man wins the job, instead of just going with Peraza because he was already on the 40-man and then plugging in, Rafael Ortega or whoever the hell they needed to get in there for because of their injuries. So I'm just happy about it. They have Oswaldo Cabrera on the lineup, who was a lot of fun for us last year. And if he does what he did last year, he doesn't improve. That's still a really huge spot for a super utility guy like that. Plus, they have DJ LeMahieu. So they went from like the oldest team in baseball last year into having some really nice youth in there, improve the rotation. I know that there's injuries for the first couple, weeks or so, but on the whole, the team needs this kind of breath of fresh air. And then, I know this is stupid, but when I watched the Jeter documentary and them talking about how important it was to have that kind of youth in the clubhouse, it's important. They need guys like that. And he just is a different type of hitter than they have, and it's a nice dynamic to him. I know they're going to bat him ninth, and he's not going to bat leadoff, at least in the beginning, until he kind of proves himself. But having a really great 9-1, 9-1-2 is really good, having like the two leadoff situation. So I'm super hyped about it. It's nice to have this. And, yeah, I mean, guys who come in when they skip double A usually end up being pretty good. I skipped triple A, I mean.
Yeah, love that. Love that debate and how it's over. That's the most important thing here, too. I think that there would have been some sort of looming cloud over the Yankees lineup, over the players that were there. If IKF is the starting shortstop day one, even if it is a Peraza situation, there's that looming, guy in triple A who's he's ready. He's just waiting. And that's not a really comfortable position to be in for any player, for other coaches, for GMs. Like, you don't need Volpe to be in AAA smashing or stealing like 3 bags a game and Boone getting asked about him when the team is off to a 6-12 start, right? Like, that's just negative all around. And now it's off to Schneid. And I think Yankee fans are going to be sharp enough and wise enough to allow a little bit of a learning curve, especially when it comes to, I see you're shaking your head, Alec, specifically to hitting with power and things of that nature, right? Like, if he goes off and bats 200 for the first 4 weeks of the season, I don't think Yankee fans are going to be like, oh my God, what did we do? Like, they're going to give this guy a little bit of a leash, and there should be enough around the team to help out. Oh, you guys.
I really don't think so. And historically, if you look at Volpe's numbers, every time he's gone up to a new level, he's struggled at that level initially, especially against breaking balls down in the zone. And again, Major League spin, a lot different than AA, AAA spin. So don't be super shocked if he doesn't start off like putting up the numbers at spring training. Like, he hit 314, 417, 647 in spring training. But that, according to Baseball References, like opponent quality metric, that was mostly against like AA competition. So there's a slight caveat here of like, but every time he's gone up at a level and he struggled initially, he's been able to adapt. He's been able to, make adjustments and go from there. Even against
not like
against the twin star Pablo Lopez. Sorry, even against that twin star Pablo Lopez, he like struck out in the first at bat, and then he made an adjustment the second at bat, and then he either hit like a off the wall double or he hit a home run or something like that. And even Pablo Lopez said afterwards, it's like he changed his approach on that second at bat, and he took me deep. Like that shows a lot of maturity. So. Even if he struggles initially, I have all the confidence in the world that he will turn it around
but most Yankee fans aren't Drew. Most Yankee fans are not Drew.
No, I listen. Yankee fans are obviously like any other fan in the world, where they can be driven with irrationality. Like every fan in the world, as this the word, it's a fanatic has some sort of irrationality in it. But with this particular decision. And this particular hope and dream that Yankee fans had to have Anthony Volpe as their starting shortstop this year, they got it. If he's struggling over the first month of the season and like fans are freaking out and saying like send him back down, wow, shame on everybody who says something like that. Like what do we,
dude? That's New York. I mean, look at Julius Randle. Julius Randle was the king of the city until he wasn't. Right? That's just how it works. Look at RJ Barrett, right? He was God's gift to New York for 2 years, and then all of a sudden he's public enemy number one. It just doesn't work like that here. I'm not saying he will struggle. I don't know that he will. I know that he does make the adjustments, and his draw is not. He's not like the toolsiest of players, right? It's not what his draw is. His draw is the intangibles. He just makes the right reads all the time. He adjusts really well, and like that's the kind of guy that does really well when you go up. But you look at like Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge had the same thing going on his whole minor league career too. He struggled every time he went up. He struggled when he came into the majors for that half season before he won Rookie of the Year. Then should have won MVP the next year. But that's what you want to see from your franchise player, right? The guy who will struggle because everyone struggles, but can make the adjustments and grow from there. He's not going to come in and bat 330 with a 400 on base percentage in his rookie year, which doesn't happen, right? But as long as he is getting incrementally better throughout the year, that's what you want to see. But if he throws up a stinker for the first 3 months, people are going to say, "Wow, we should have went with Peraza," because you have another top 50 prospect there. Or I think he's out of the top 100 these days after last year. But it's always about what could you be doing? Who could we? It's the backup quarterback situation. The backup quarterback looks great until you put him in, type of thing. I don't think he will struggle mightily for 3 months. I think he'll probably struggle for the first month or so, but he'll address it. But New York fans are like that, man. Philly fans are like that, and Boston fans are like that. You don't get to be shitty for an extended period of time.
Yeah, and the compounding issue is the Yankees passed up on like 7 generational talented shortstops for Volpe. So if Volpe comes out and struggles, like every article, I said this on the last podcast, every article on the Post is going to be like Lindor is going to have like a big game, or Correa is going to have a big game, or Seager is going to have a big game, or like anybody else is going to have a big game, and they're going to be like, well, this is like, and it's going to be like against the Yankees, and like Volpe's hitting whatever he's saying, and it's just going to be a story, and that's what sucks, because it's that added pressure on him. But again, I think he's going to make the adjustments, and I have his actual Zips projection. So they are projecting his stat line to be, and Zips are fairly conservative on their projections. Their stat line of batting 234, 318 on base percentage, and a 407 slugging, which is 108 No, it's 108 WRC plus, which is 8% better than league average. And just to put it into context, only 8 shortstops put up a higher WRC plus than 108 in 2022. So, like, if he's the 8th best hitting shortstop in the league at age 21 for a rookie, I think that's a pretty big success. Even though that's not, I think like a lot of Yankee fans would say that's a disappointment. That's not a great year, especially considering what he did in spring training. But I think that's the conservative estimate, like a 240 hitter, pretty good on base percentage, going to steal some bags, going to bring that energy in the bottom of the lineup. Again, we're not talking superstar yet, but again, you're talking 21-year-old kid, rookie, one of the top 3 youngest players to ever start opening day for the Yankees. So it's there's a lot of expectations, and there's a lot of a lot of hype around Volpe, but I'm excited as much as anybody, but I think, the spring training that he had is going to put a lot of big expectations that I'm not sure that's not even fair to actually put on him to go into the season.
For sure. And with those numbers that you kind of just touched on there, you also add in the stolen bases, you add in a good glove, and that 108 WRC plus feels a whole lot better because of the other things that he's flashing. That's to Alec's point. The intangibles are the types of things that don't really go into slumps, right? And that's super important in this stretch. And maybe I'm misrepresenting Yankee fans here, aka I'm not a Yankee fan, so I'm definitely misrepresenting Yankee fans clearly here. So maybe there will be frustration with the numbers offensively, but I do think if the intangibles stay alive, which they should, because those things usually don't go into slumps, like I said, then it'll be understandable. And if there's that trickle, if there's those flashes, if there's those weeks or series where he does hit the ball pretty well, I think it'll be fine. But that moment of 3 months down the road and the Yankees aren't off to the start they had last year, perhaps you guys are 100% right, and I'm wrong here, where Yankee fans will be outwardly frustrated. I just think that's hypocritical and stupid to think that after you cried for months and months and months that he wasn't going to be the shortstop of this team. So I don't know. I'll put my hands up on that one. We're going to talk more about Anthony Volpe and the rest of the lineup. First, I did mean to do this before we got into all of it. So let me just run through this really quick for you guys in regards to some numbers so our listeners can think about this along and you guys can think about this along. We will make our actual bets or predictions on these numbers down the road. So the Yankees over under is at, do you guys know off the top of your head? Maybe a fun little quiz. Take your guess. What do you think it's at?
93.
I gotta say 90 and a half.
93 and a half. Alec, ding, ding, ding. So 93 and a half on the over under. They are minus 475 to make the playoffs. With that 93 and a half, an interesting number here. You can bet on the bands, as they call it on DraftKings Sportsbook here. It's a range of wins. So between 92 and 97 wins is plus 245. That's kind of chill. Plus between 86 and 91 is plus 295. And plus 98, 103 is plus 390. 104 or more is plus 600. 85 fewer plus 330. That's kind of interesting, I thought, a little bit there as well. Then on the division front, they are the favorites in the AL East at plus 130, with the Blue Jays at plus 200, Rays 340, Red Sox plus 1500, Orioles all the way down to plus 2500. So those are the main odds there for your New York Yankees. So think about that. So you guys have a prediction towards the end of this segment here, but there's a lot to talk about, and it's a good place to start with last year. So last year has a mixed bag of memories if you really think about it. The first half of the season was elite by many standards. They were off to a rock solid start. They ran away with the division very early. We always say, and this is Alec's favorite line, you can't win the division or make the playoffs or win the championship in May and April. What do you say? In May, April? Doesn't matter. In the first half, in the early parts, you know what I'm saying? You can't win it, but you can lose it. So they took care of business. They did what they needed to do in the first half of last season. However, the other mixed bag portion of the last season was a really, really mediocre to actually, let's just say it was a poor August for the New York Yankees. They did not hit. Aaron Judge carried. The pitching finally came down to a little bit of earth. This year, they enter with a really strong rotation that does have some injuries early on. They enter with a lineup that Yankee fans are a little bit disappointed with the lack of additions into this season. However, still looked at as a very strong, above average lineup with Aaron Judge at the helm. So, with that all being said, Andrew, I'd like to go to you first. I want to catch the vibes. I want to hear how you're feeling about this New York Yankee squad and your expectations for this season.
Well, the lineup, I've said many, many times that I'm very unhappy with the additions or lack of additions to the offense that very much struggled in the entire second half of last year. And the reason why they got eliminated from the postseason last year, it was Aaron Judge and nobody else. And you're talking about relying on the health of Giancarlo Stanton. You're talking about relying on the health of Rizzo, who already has back issues, and historically back issues don't just go away. That's something you got to manage through the whole time. So your top three hitters, you have two guys, big injury question marks, and then there's not a whole lot of Gleyber Torres is your fourth best hitter. Realistically, you would like him to be your sixth or seventh best hitter. And, I like Volpe. And I think, again, we just talked about the expectations for him in the lineup going forward. And, he's not going to be the savior of the lineup, unfortunately. You're going to have Cabrera, whose bat I like a lot, and Hicks, who we'll see if he is helped out by the shift as much as everyone thinks he's going to be. And I have zero expectation for Josh Donaldson. He hit a couple homers at the end of spring training, but he was hitting them off breaking balls. Once the guys start pumping 95, 96, 97, he's going to be toast. And, I really hope that with Peraza down in AAA that he's getting a majority of his at-bats at third base and they're ready to replace him as soon as possible, because Josh Donaldson, even though he's still an elite defender at third base, like, you need the offense, defense is great, but offense, you got to be able to hit. And if it's not going to be Judge, I'm very concerned about the offensive productivity of this lineup. I don't know if we want to just talk about the lineup right now, or do we want to talk about the pitching staff as well?
Yeah, let's stay on the lineup then for just a hot second. And Alec, I'll jump to you since we're on the lineup first. Your thoughts on what Drew said there, your thoughts on the overarching lineup. I'll just throw in the idea of Josh Donaldson really, really fast. With what they're paying him, that's one of those things where Yankee fans are kind of just like, I guess our hands are tied for now. We have to see what happens, which sucks. But it seems like that's kind of what's happening with him. Like, he's going to have to start the beginning of the season, whether we like it or not. So that's what basically seems to be the facts, whether it feels good or not. So, Alec, what's your live thoughts?
I disagree. I don't think we're stuck with Donaldson. No fan was like, "Yay, we got Josh Donaldson in IKF when we first got him," right? So everyone's waiting for him to get out the door anyway.
For sure.
He's on an expiring. He's done after this year. They also have DJ LeMahieu, who looks healthy, who plays a very good third base. He as a super utility player. They have Oswaldo Cabrera, who's also going to be a super utility player, and it looks good. I don't think the worries you had going into this year, from last year, lingering from last year, were left field, third base, and shortstop. Seemingly, shortstop is addressed, right, with Volpe. So we're not super worried there. Third base, you have DJ LeMahieu, who looks healthy. Of course, you can't rely on his health. You can't rely on anyone's health in this lineup outside of potentially, Volpe, who's just younger. But going into the season, you have DJ LeMahieu, who's going to play a lot of third base. He's going to go all the way around, so you can hide that. You can hide Donaldson, and then I don't think Hicks is going to get a lot of play when you have Cabrera there. And then soon enough, it's not like Bader has this crazy injury that he's going to be out for 6 months. He's going to miss like the first 2 or 3 weeks. So you'll have Bader there playing center, and you'll figure out left field with what you have. I think Cabrera is going to be your everyday left fielder this year. If he does what he did last year, he's tremendously better than Aaron Hicks, and you're good there. Catcher is catcher. You know my feelings on there. So whatever you get out of Trevino is a plus. I feel good about the lineup. I think adding the dynamic of Cabrera and Volpe for a full season adds a layer of complexity to this team that they didn't have for a while, right? They need players that aren't just 3 outcome players. They also have no shift. That's going to help certain players. It's going to help a lot of players, especially like Rizzo. Rizzo's going to have a great year. I care less about Hicks because who cares about Hicks? But I just think the team's in good shape right now. I wish they had Joey Gallo this year with the shift being gone. But they don't have a lot of holes, and they have a lot of depth this year to weather some injuries too. But they didn't have that last year. That was something we went into last year where we were saying that this bench is really, really shallow. But assuming a fully healthy team on the bench, you have DJ LeMahieu, Oswaldo Cabrera, and Isaiah Falefa, who are 3 fantastic bench players, right? So I'm not worried about it. And you can spell everyone, hopefully get less injuries because you have DJ and Cabrera going every day in some capacity.
Yeah, DJ's foot issue was, he never had the surgery, so it's just a matter of can the toe, because once the toe completely sapped his power, and it seems like he's 100% healthy. The StatCast was saying he was hitting the ball like he was in the first half, and he was a MVP type of player in the first half of last year. It's just a matter of staying healthy. the full season. So that's really my concern with the lineup is the health going forward, and you're relying on a bunch of guys that haven't been able to stay healthy.
But that's baseball these days. No team is fully healthy anymore. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah. Which is why the depth becomes such an important factor. And I'm surprised here on ESPN they actually have LeMahieu listed as the starting third baseman. That's not the case though, right? Like
he's starting. No. He's starting on Thursday. He's their opening day third baseman.
Are they really? I thought Boone said Donaldson was. I'm not 100%.
I thought I saw that LeMahieu was leading off on Monday, and if you're leading LeMahieu off, you're going to have a combination of him and Stanton, figuring it out, and you have to have Stanton playing the field, right? So, yeah, Donaldson could be your DH at that point if they do that. That's what I would think.
It would either be Torres. It has to be some combination of Torres, LeMahieu, or Donaldson at the DH. So, but I feel like you have to play LeMahieu every day, and that's the good part about him is that he can move around. He can literally play all three infield positions and the DH. So there's a lot of roster flexibility there. And if Stanton, if they're planning on playing him in right field for as much as as they say they are, and especially in Yankee Stadium, because he feels better when he plays the field, or he feels like he can stay healthier when he plays the field, which makes no fucking sense to me. How he keeps getting hurt being a DH all the time. Maybe he's staying active. Yeah, or he's not staying active, or he's not riding the bike in between innings, or I don't know what it is. But if that's what he says he can be better by playing the field every day, then let Stanton go out and do it. But after last year, I'm very much down on Stanton, which is kind of surprising because I was a rah Stanton guy for a while. But like after last year, I feel like we've already seen the best that Stanton can be, and I feel like we're already on a downhill trajectory with him. So, everyone's expecting
welcome to 10-year contracts.
Yeah. So everyone's expecting him to be the 1A to Judge, and I feel like that's setting up everybody to get really pissed off at him by June. So we'll see what happens.
Listen, I think at this point you get with Stanton, which is a streaky hitter. When he's hot, he is unstoppable, and you take that, right, because you can hide that those. He never goes on slumps for like 2 months long, right? He'll have 2 weeks bad, 3 weeks great, 3 weeks bad, 1 week great, whatever. It's and he wins you games. So I'm fine with Stanton. He's a difference maker.
Yeah, I mean, and he obviously has kind of earned his share of respect with his. I didn't say it.
Postseason play.
They're called pinstripes.
Yeah, well, I didn't want to say that. Another thing I just saw on Twitter as a possibility. This is not obviously like a projected or verified thing, but. Glaber could play DH and DJ can lead off playing second base.
Yeah, and I think there's a possibility that they move Glaber to third at some point too. He's not a shortstop, we know that, but he's got a good enough arm that they can put him at third, and he's got good range.
Yeah. So in regards to the lineup, is it similar to last year when it comes to concerns? You guys have talked about how there's a little more versatility from the offensive perspective. Last year, they were inverse of the Mets where they had a lot of power and not a lot of consistency. With some of these ads, are you guys less nervous about that prospect of being all punch and no consistency, no OBP guys, solid contact guys? Do you think that gets changed a little bit this year?
I think that the rule changes will benefit the Yankees a lot. I think that they're going to be terrors on the base path. I think that they all have very good instincts when it comes to the base pass, right? And especially someone like Volpe, he's going to annoy the hell out of whatever pitcher's on there. And a lot of these younger guys who are used to these rules in the minors, they know how to adjust to it already, and they won't have those growing pains early in the season. I think will really benefit them. Things like that with the bigger bases and the pickoff attempt limits and things of that nature, but also the shift will benefit Anthony Rizzo, who was our second best hitter last year. I think the dynamic of the team is a lot better.
And Matt Carpenter, man. I mean, that's a big loss, guys.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I do love him,
dude. When he went Barry Bonds for like a month and a half, that was probably like one of the, outside of Judge. That was probably the most fun I had last year. Was watching Matt Carpenter just literally go to 0-4 Barry Bonds. It was nuts.
We just kept saying like, all right, this has to stop at some point, and it didn't. And then he got hurt, which was the only thing that could slow him down last year. So, yeah, it's safe to say that the offense could feel a little bit more consistent here this year, and that's a positive thing because in reality, what held them back last year was very much so the offense. It was, and you don't expect that from a Yankees team. The starting rotation was absolutely the rock solid, consistent portion of the team that held it together for most of the season, and even in the latter portions of the year when they slowed down, they were still strong. So why don't we talk about said rotation and talk about that? They are dealing with some injuries off the rip. We got Rodon starting off out and Severino starting off out. Is that correct? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Montas
And Bader.
And No, I was talking about just the pitchers.
Well,
Bader's
the bullpen too. We don't have Efros and we don't have Trevino.
right.
and Canely.
And Canely. So the pitching staff is starting off a little bit down. However, this staff is one that can hang with that for a little bit. So you get Clark Schmidt and Domingo Homran to kind of fill those roles for now, which I think a lot of teams would be happy if they were just their regular guys. And they're kind of like the second team, if you will, for the Yankees starting pitching staff here. So that's a good thing. So it's basically going to be Cole, Nestor, Domingo Herman, Clark Schmidt, and who am I missing here off the top?
Johnny Brito. If
Oh,
anybody,
he's starting in the rotation too.
He's starting game 3. I think it's going to be I think the rotation said it's Cole, Schmidt, Johnny Brito, game 3, Cortez, and then Herman. Starting the year. If anybody, like, I feel like I have my like pulse on the Yankees and baseball in general, and I never heard of Johnny Brito before like 2 days ago. So if someone would have told me back in December the number 3 starter for the Yankees in 2023 would be Johnny Brito, I would have been like, something has gone terribly wrong. And it kind of has. Like, you have to be really concerned about Luis Severino and his ability to stay on the field. I understand that. It's a different lat injury that he had the last year, but that lat injury kept him out for like 2 months. So he's going to miss significant time. Rodon had the same issue, I guess, back in May of last year. So he knows how to deal with it. So those are 2 pretty big injury concerns on your number 2 and number 3 starter. I know Cortez is, going to be able to hold it down. I have full confidence in him, and I'm really big on Clark Schmidt. This will be a really nice opportunity for him to show that he belongs in rotation next year because Severino is a free agent, Montas is a free agent, so there's a spot for him and Herman next year. So they both have a good shot of showing that the Yankees that they belong for next year too. But the injury bug has already hit them, and that's really tough. That's really tough to be able to have to weather those innings so early on in the season. Even though guys usually take it easy with starting pitchers early on, they're only throwing like 60, 70, 80 pitches to begin the season. But again, it's still not exactly what you want from especially a guy you just gave a $160 million contract to.
Not what you want. Yeah. And last year there was that crazy stretch where they went how many months? Like 70% of the season with their 5 guys intact.
Yeah.
So the odds were not in their favor heading into this year. And obviously they're starting off without their 5 intact. Thankfully, they got a guy who just eats innings with Garrett Cole. Even if you could argue he hasn't been the top billing superstar that maybe some Yankee fans thought they were getting, he has been so rock solid. Besides the long ball biting him every once in a while, you can't complain about Garrett Cole very much. He'll be there. You expect him to be consistent. Nestor probably passed through that idea of him not being able to pitch a full season last year, so that feels good going into this season. And then you just got to wait for those other guys. But having a Clark Schmidt is obviously a nice guy to have in your pen when he's there, but a good guy to throw into the rotation as well. Onto the bullpen, though, a thing that's been so strong and such a positive for the Yankees over the years, as we just mentioned, Trevino starting out, Canely starting out. There's still guys here. There's still Michael King, Loizaga, Marinaccio, and Clay Holmes, who's the new dude of the Yankees bullpen. So what do we expect this year from this bullpen? And in particular, what they're going to do with the closer position. Do you guys expect it to be Clay Holmes, do or die no matter what? He's the 9th inning guy, or they're going to be using him moving around to kind of play the matchups and end up platooning the closer role, even if it's clear that Clay Holmes is the number 1, if that makes sense.
I think Clay Holmes is your closer for sure. I don't think he has the longest of leashes this year. I think he started to unravel midway through last season, right after the All-Star break. It started, it was a little touch and go. He started getting really good in the playoffs again last year. It was not his fault that we did not, win the World Series last year. But Michael King is your fireman this year. He's your high leverage guy. He's the guy you put anywhere you need. He was awesome last year. I never worry about the Yankees bullpen. I never have, and I never will until proven otherwise. They could put me out there, and then I'll end up with a 1 ERA. I mean, that's just how they do it at this point. So, it's hard not to it's hard to worry about it. The only thing I would be worried about is Clay Holmes going to be first half last year or second half the year before this year? And if he's not, they have other people. I would feel so comfortable if they put Wandy Peralta as the closer at this point for this year. I wouldn't bat an eye at it. They won't do it probably. They like him in the role that he's at, but I'm just using that as an example. They could put pretty much anyone in there and they'll have the success that they're looking for. And even if it's a bad closer by Yankee standards, because we're always comparing everything to Mo, it's going to be a top 10 closer in baseball. They always have one.
Yeah, and I totally forgot about Wandy Peralta before you even mentioned him. Like that, it's a very deep bullpen, even with the injuries that they have here. And honestly, even if Clay Holmes is still very good, I feel like they're going to mix and match. They're not going to have, because they don't have a high priced reliever. It's like the first time since Mo retired that they haven't had a reliever making like $15 million a year or something like that. So these are all guys that are making close to league minimum. So I would probably expect maybe 2 or 3 guys to have 10 plus saves. It wouldn't surprise me if Loaizaga went and became the closer for a little while. It wouldn't surprise me if Peralta got some saves. It wouldn't surprise me if Michael King got some saves. I feel like Aaron Boone is going to be very fluid with the bullpen management. Whether that's a good thing or not, well, leave that up to the fans to decide. But I feel like he's going to be very fluid with the bullpen this year, and it's going to be very strong again. As Alex said, I'm really never worried about the Yankees bullpen whatsoever, because again, they just make Ron Marinaccios just out of nowhere, and he was awesome last year. So,
but they also don't
really
have
not
any
worried about them.
They don't have any volatile pitchers anymore in the pen, right? They don't have an Aroldis Chapman anymore. He cost us a lot of games last year. They don't have, they have guys who they're not going to give up 3 home runs in an inning to get out of that, 3 out rule that they have to deal with. You have guys that you know what you're getting with them on a consistent basis, and they'll blow a save here or there, but they're just a rock solid bullpen from top to bottom.
As they typically are, which is a nice thing to feel. And the crosstown Metsies over there, we don't always feel the same way about our bullpen. And obviously we'll talk about them.
At least you got Diaz.
Oh, you jerk. You're a mean man. You're not nice. That's what I have to say. But to put a pin in the Yankee stuff for now, 99 win team last year. Are you surprised by the 93.5 over under? Does that make you feel like it's a smash the over, or does it make you say, that feels a little too easy, perhaps? Why are they putting it at 93.5? Or is that just kind of standard practice for a team who's expected to win division?
Don't forget the balanced rosters, balanced schedule this year. They don't have to deal with the Red Sox, the Orioles, the Blue Jays, and the Rays for 80 games anymore. They get to go beat up on the Colorado Rockies this year.
So you're saying maybe the 93.5 is too low? That's what it sounds like to me.
I think they get 96 wins this year for sure.
96. Go ahead.
It seems appropriate considering the injury risks that are not just in the rotation but in the lineup as well. So I think that's where again, if everyone's healthy, this is like 100. If everyone's healthy and productive, this is like 100+ win team. But again, injuries happen, guys go in slumps and things happen. So I would definitely do over 91. Yeah, I'm probably expecting between 95 and 97 wins for the Yankees.
And for reference here, the only teams with a higher win total on DraftKings are the Braves at 94.5 and the Dodgers at 95.5. So there is no 98.5 over under, even for the Dodgers this year. So that is pretty much top tier. 93.5. They're tied with the Padres at that number. And that's a top 3 number in the MLB right now. So with my question, that probably makes it a little bit invalid there. Let me just give you guys one more thing to chew on here for a second before we move on to the New York Mets. ESPN put out their top 100. I don't know how you guys feel about that. I don't know how much you guys dove into that number, or that list, I should say. But the Yankees have just 4 guys listed in ESPN's top 100. Aaron Judge is number 3, Garrett Cole at number 19, Rodon, who is not starting the season on the roster because of injury, at 34, and Nestor Cortez at 75. They did caveat on certain guys that they dropped down because of injury or left off because of injury. They didn't have Stanton in there. They didn't have him as an honorable mention. I thought that was a little bit surprising personally. I know he was hurt a lot last year and, he had 30 home runs. If that's a down year for Giancarlo Stanton, I think he's better than that and has the ability to be better. I was surprised, but are you guys surprised with just 4 Yankees listed in the top 100?
Absolutely, because you have to think Rizzo is a top 100 player, and I know that Loizaga was hurt or at the beginning of last year and he struggled, but like once he came back from injury, he had like a sub-1 ERA with like a crazy amount of strikeouts. Like he's bonkers, and he was great last year. Like he's a top 10 reliever in baseball. It doesn't matter about saves or anything like that. Like Jonathan Loizaga is a top 10 reliever in baseball, and prove me wrong otherwise. I'll be that guy with the meme on the sign. So I would definitely put Rizzo, Stanton, and at least Loizaga into the top 100 players in baseball for sure.
There were not many relievers on the list, just for reference.
No.
So that's probably why he wasn't there, but yeah, I was a little bit surprised when I went through the list that he wasn't on there. I couldn't believe it that the Yankees had only 4. We'll get to the Mets portion of the list, but the Mets had 8 guys or 7 guys. Sorry. The Mets had 7 guys on the list there. And a lot more. That's almost double, right? So that was just interesting to me. I didn't expect that. Alec, you don't seem to care much at all, right?
There's 780 players in the MLB, right? So this is not like the NBA top 100 list that matters more because these guys are getting significant more like burn. But there's 9 guys on the field and then 5 guys in your rotation plus closers and everything like that. Doesn't bother me. The top 100 is like excellent. Those are the best players in the league for sure. And if you're like 150, you're also really good still. If you're 200, you're still a good player for sure. So that doesn't bother me at all. I do think Rizzo probably is deserving of a top 100 spot, but I'd also have to do the math on that. He might be 101 or 102 or something like that. And for all intents and purposes, it's the same thing.
Yeah, if he's 112, it's like, okay, somebody else. They asked 3 more writers to
right.
put their 100 in, and he's in, right? Like that is the possibility for sure. So yeah, just 4 guys in the top 100s. All right, time to make predictions here. 93.5. You kind of gave your leans already. Excuse me. 93.5 for the Yankees. Do we have any players here? Do we have any guys who are willing to put up the bucks on 93.5? You feel that good about it? You guys both projected the 94, 96 range. Do you feel good on the over there?
Big time. Smash
Absolutely.
it.
Smash the over, which would also make me think that you like the idea of them winning their division at plus 130. And in fact, if you like the over 93.5, maybe you'll like the plus 130 just as much. I'd recommend, if you do like the over, to take the plus 130 for the AL East. Who is the biggest competition in the AL East this year? Is it the Jays, the Rays, or Wild Horse, Red Sox, or Orioles?
I'm going to Orioles, man. That team is young and fun and good. They were a surprise team last year. They're going to get better. They have more experience. They have 2 of the top 5 prospects in baseball going to be on the team this year, in addition to Adley Rutschman from last year. So you got Gunnar Henderson, who's my pick for Rookie of the Year this year. That guy rules and kicked ass when he came up last year. And you have Grayson Rodriguez, who's getting service time manipulation. Also, he kind of sucked in spring, but he's going to be really good. This team, and they also, what's his name, Kyle Bradish on their rotation. That's a big time sleeper this year. He's going to be really, really good. I don't think they win the division, but the Red Sox aren't going anywhere. I think the Blue Jays are what the Blue Jays were last year. I don't think they've improved at all. They're what the Yankees were for the past 10 years. And then the Rays, I mean, they're kind of bereft of talent too these days. I mean, they're not what they were before. You never count them out, of course, because it's the Rays and they've been a thorn in our side for like the past 15 years. But I don't know. That Orioles team scares me for the next 10 years or so.
Their over number is 76.5, by the way.
I mean,
the problem with to be as good as they were last year.
Yeah, they'll be good. The problem is ownership doesn't believe that they're going to be good. That's why they didn't spend any money. Like they said, we don't think this team's ready enough to invest money in free agents or anything like that. But like the whole problem with that is that like the team, like this is when you want to spend on free agents while these guys are under cost control and you're able to go in. Then you supplement whatever talent you're missing right now with free agents. So like I didn't understand their offseason. I mean, I'm fine with it because fuck them and go Yankees. But so that's fine. But yeah, I expect the Orioles to be really good. The Red Sox have they added guys, they subtracted, they obviously lost Bogarts. So it's gonna they have a very high variable. Like they could, if everything goes right, they could be like the third wild card team. But like if they play like a normal season, they're gonna be competing for last place in the division, which nothing makes me happier. Yeah, James, and he's already on the IL, and he hasn't even pitched yet. So, but I expect the Blue Jays that they got Dalton Varsho and they got Brandon Belt, which are like two very meh. Like they needed lefties in the lineup, and they got Kevin Kiermaier, so they got like three very meh lefties to try to balance out the lineup. And their rotation, Manoah and Gosman, and they got Chris Bassett from the Mets, so along with Barrios and Kikuchi. So it's not like a bad rotation, but their bullpen's not great. And again, their Springer's never healthy. Even Vlad wasn't super healthy last year too, and you can't really rely on Brandon Belt's 35. Kevin Kiermaier's never able to hit anyway, and
he's 60 years
Dalton,
old too.
Yeah, and Dalton Varsho's like, I don't know. He was good in Arizona, but who knows if he's going to be like actually good in the AL East, and he's like their projected number 4 hitter. So I feel like it's going to be Toronto, but I feel like the Yankees are going to be the clear head and shoulders favorite in the American League East for now, until Baltimore decides to spend money.
Boston's at 78.5, Toronto at 91.5, and the Rays at 88.5, just for reference there. So Yankees looked at as the pacers of the division, and I think that makes sense. And to all the bettors out there, if you like the over, plus 130 to win the division, that's obvious. If you're going to put over 93.5, you obviously also want to sprinkle that division winner at plus 130. But anything else to add on the New York Yankees? Because otherwise it's time to talk about that other team in New York. What do you think, guys?
Kyle Higashioka, comeback season, rookie of the year, MVP, Cy Young, all of it.
Comeback player of the year.
Yeah.
That's not even an award, right? In baseball, the comeback player of the year. That's
no,
a
weird.
Yeah.
It's a real thing. Rivera won it the year after he blew out his knee and then he retired. He got comeback player of the year. Giambi won
got rid of it.
No, they still have it. Giambi won it. I forgot who won it last year. Verlander won it last year.
Wow. The Cy Young comeback. People forget. People forget the comeback player of the year. Also the Cy Young award winner. All right. That's all we got for the Yankees, but we're not done yet here on Subway Sports Talk. Pete Kennedy, Alec Argento, Andrew Calagna. The designated hitters are here, and we're talking baseball because it's baseball freaking season, and it's time to talk about the New York Mets. Since I waited to do the whole top 100 thing, since it's top of mind, let me just open up, since I don't have a Volpe segment to start off the Mets conversation with. Let's talk about this Mets team that has a 91.5 over under right now, minus 380 to make the playoffs. So not as good of odds as the Yankees, but still pretty strong odds to make the playoffs. They're obviously in a very strong division with the defending NL champions in the Phillies, and 2 years ago, the champion Braves, and the team that caught them last year in the last moment with the 101 tiebreaker to the Braves, division winners. Two really good teams there. You also have the Nationals, who are irrelevant, and the Marlins, who are, I wouldn't say they're like the Orioles, but they don't suck completely, right? The Marlins are okay. So that's the NL East. And for the division odds on the NL East, you have the Braves at plus 105, so a pretty strong favorite there. The Mets at plus 170, with the Phillies surprisingly low on the division winner odds at plus 425. Marlins and Nationals plus 2,000 and plus, sorry, I almost read this wrong. The Nationals are plus 25,000.
The disrespect, the sheer disrespect.
Because I was looking, like the AL East odds are right above right above the NL East odds, and the Orioles are plus 2,500. So I almost just automatically said the Marlins are the Nationals are plus 2,500. They're plus 25,000.
Worth a $10 bet, I'll tell you that much.
Is it though?
Yeah, for that kind of money, for sure.
If all the
Baseball's
other
wacky.
teams combust, the Nationals become the de facto NL East champions. That's hilarious. I did not notice that until just
Listen,
now.
Joey Meneses could take him to the promised land, baby. Look, watch out for WBC superstar. And last year, second half, he had better numbers than Juan Soto, Joey Meneses, the Washington Nationals. Plus, they got CJ Abrams and Mackenzie Gore. They could. That's worth putting down 10 schmeckles down to.
They got
win
Patrick Corbin, baby. They got Steven Strasburg, baby.
Yeah. Right. I think Bryce Harper's making a return. He's going to forebode his season with the Phillies and go back to Washington. All right. Well, that's about enough Washington Nationals talk here. So there we go. Mets 91.5 minus 380 to make the playoffs, plus 170 to win the division. And on the top 100 front, the Mets are much more present in this list. So they have not the high end number 3 like Aaron Judge, but in that front half of this list, they have Lindor at 17, Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer at 22 and 27, with Alonso at 29. Then you flip over past 50 and you get McNeil, the defending batting champion, at 57. Brandon Nimmo at 68, who's also going to start as an injured player, and then Starling Marte at 86th. So that's a number more players. They are not including Jacob deGrom, who's no longer a Met, who's number 44 on this list, and number 44 for Jacob deGrom. Can you believe that? Yeah, I guess that makes sense. But they did obviously bring into the fact of injuries and et cetera into this list. So the Mets have a strong showing in the top 100. They have pretty strong expectations. They have an owner who's willing to make moves, and we have some serious expectations on this team yet again. 101 wins last year. They're now over under is 9.5 games lower than that. We did talk about the division already. So let's start off with the lineup, just like we did with the Yankees. The Mets lineup was inverse to the Yankees lineup last year. The only thing that was similar is there was one bat who ate the bulk of the power, if you will. And that still seems to be Pete Alonso. So he is the main power hitter, but with the mixture of Nimmo, Marte, McNeil, Kana, Lindor, Escobar, some young guns, hopefully waiting in the wings to get some chances to make moves like Brett Beatty, Vientos, and Alvarez, who is starting the year off in AAA. This team is deep. This lineup is deep. I do think there are some reasons to be concerned about the power thing, which, we've talked about a lot on this podcast. I haven't heard people talking about it in preview shows and articles and podcasts that I've listened to. So, Drew, let me start off with you again here on this lineup front for the New York Mets. How do we feel about it? Do we think they can be a top 10 type of offense or better? And what do you have of expectations for the depth and then also the star power here in New York?
Yeah, no, I mean they've been a top 5 offense for like the last 3 years, and again they brought everyone back. So and they changed up the catcher position with Omar Narvaez. He's going to give you more than what James McCann did, but again he's just a placeholder for Alvarez. And the big thing was bringing back Nimmo, so you have your big on base percentage guy at the top of the lineup, and Marte, Lindor, Alonso. Again, that's a pretty good 2, 3, 4 in the lineup, and McNeil and Canna and Vogelbach, and those guys will the bottom third of the order. You have a pretty deep bench as well with Guillorme, LaCastro, and Pham, so you'll be able to mix and match there as well. I actually really was kind of surprised that they DFA'd Darren Ruff. And in favor of LaCastro, because I guess they wanted more defense rather than someone who can hit. But I mean, Ruff wasn't able to hit as a Met. He absolutely failed. He was terrible. He was terrible last year, and he was terrible in spring training this year. So I'm glad they didn't decide to compound a bad trade by keeping him around, unlike the Yankees and Donaldson. But anyway. The lineup has a lot of contact. They have a lot of on base. Again, power is at a premium, but I feel like a full season of Vogelbach will help with that a little bit more. And again, you do have your top power hitting prospect in Alvarez waiting in the wings, waiting to come in and improve the offense from the catcher position or the DH position whenever he's ready to go, which I feel like will be pretty soon.
So the Vogelbach question, I saw Alec make a face there. It's such a weird thing. He had such a great year for the Mets last year, but it's like he's this big dude who seems like a power bat. He's kind of not a power bat, or at least like he wasn't last year. I know he has a year back in 2019 where he had 30 home runs, which is a real power bat level a season, right? That was a year where many people were hitting home runs and balls were flying out. Who knows if they were juiced, right? Was that 2019? I don't know. Who's to say? So I don't know if he is a power bat. It feels good and feels right to have him there. He is a gap to gap guy who will hit, his version of doubles and triples, if you will. But yeah, I don't know, that the power thing does freak me out. I guess I always kind of get that in my head, maybe because I'm always juxtaposing the Mets to the Yankees. And that's probably more of a personal issue, if we're being completely honest, where, little brother syndrome, I don't know what you want to call it, but like when you look around the league and you look around the division for the Mets and you see the Phillies and you see the Braves who have multiple dudes who hit bombs all the time, right? Like Marte runs into him. Nimmo can hit some home runs. Lindor can hit home runs. Lindor had an incredible run.
They ain't Kyle Schwarber.
They ain't Kyle Schwarber. They ain't Bryce Harper. They ain't Ronald Acuna. Like there is that part of it that makes me nervous. And maybe it's the bad taste in my mouth of how last season ended, right? Because that really, when it comes down to it, that was something that was most noticeable in the end of the season and in the playoffs, right? Where those scrappy innings and those McNeil scrap hits and Nimmo gets on from a walk and Marte hits a screaming single. Nimmo's on third now. All of a sudden, like we got a real chance. Like those opportunities just don't exist as the game slows down and it gets a little bit tighter. And Alec, I know what you're probably going to say, but tell me if you think I'm being valid in that idea of being nervous about that one aspect of offense.
Yeah, so I want to caveat this by saying I don't think the Mets are a bad team. Like this is all relative to where they are in that new upper echelon that they're at.
Gotcha.
Right.
Right. Like rating the best harsher.
Exactly. Like now you're compared to the Yankees, the Dodgers, and everything like that, as opposed to just being the Mets and a scrappy team. And if you do well, that's great. At currently constituted, this is a weirdly constructed team. I think there's so many question marks across this team. And we'll talk about the rotation too, but you're relying on two top prospects to come up, right? And that could be great. 9 times out of 10, these prospects fail, right? That's just, or they're not. When I say fail, they're not what they're made out to be, right? And we saw Alvarez last year, and it was a super duper small sample size, but he wasn't great. He didn't come up and make an immediate impression. I don't think he's going to come up and make an immediate impression now. Same thing with Beatty. If they thought he would, they would be on the roster right now, right? I don't think it's a service time manipulation thing with them, because I don't think that Cohen cares about that kind of stuff. So I think you have a lot of question marks surrounded by lack of power. You have Pete Alonso. Obviously, you know what you're getting with him. Amazing. One of the best power hitters in baseball right now. But outside of that, you're right. You're getting people that could potentially run into one, as opposed to guys that you're expecting a home run out of every 2-3 games or so. And we'll talk about it, but I don't think this rotation is amazing. And there's a lack of depth there, and you're going to need to overcome, especially with these new rules. You're going to need to overcome the lack of offense that you're going to be getting compared to what the other teams are going to be getting with their home run hitters. That one more caveat of this division is not going to be theirs. There's no chance in France that they're going to win this division. It's going to be the Phillies division this year. That division, that team is so deep and full of star power, and everybody just like reeling after like the World Baseball Classic. I mean, look what Schwarber and Trey Turner did in the World Baseball Classic. They're on the same team. That's ridiculous. You're going to get Bryce Harper back around July. You know what Bryce Harper is. He's arguably the best player in baseball. For my money, he is the best player in baseball. That's a lot of things to overcome. The last thing I want to say about this is, what doesn't worry me is that Steve Cohen will quickly address a problem. Right. So if he sees something, this team, the way that it is today, will be nowhere near what it looks like at the end of the season. So that's the one thing that should give every Met fan hope, because I think that, in sports, you could have all the great players in the world, but if the team doesn't make sense together, it's not going to work. Look at what, like, the Raptors, for example. That team has a ton of star power on that team, and they just suck because they're all playing the same position. They're all doing the same exact thing. It's what the Yankees struggled with for a long time. They have the same type of player persona every day and all throughout their lineup, and I think it's just weird. So I have faith that Steve Cohen will fix this. And the market wasn't great in the offseason, but come the trade deadline or a month before the trade deadline, this team's going to look very different.
Yeah, and they have, again, if you don't believe that Alvarez or Beatty or Vientos or who's the other guy, or Marinash or Mauricio, are guys that can be a part of this team going forward, especially if you locked up Lindor for Mauricio, then you can use that prospect capital to go out and get somebody to address those needs. You can take on the salary, or you can use those upper prospects that you do have to be able to address those needs. But again, I really like their top 5-6 hitters. I'm a bigger Mark Canha fan than most other people. I feel like in the right spots, he's gonna, again, he's a big on base guy, and I feel like that's a big part of the game. They're a big contact and big on base team. Again, you'll be able to address the power come the deadline. They almost addressed the power with Carlos Correa. They were almost able to do that, but obviously Steve Cohen is willing, and more than willing, to be able to go out there and just throw the checkbook around to be able to acquire who needs to acquire to make sure that the Mets are in it at the very least, at least a wild card team, at the end of the year.
And surprisingly, somehow Alec was like 100% negative and 100% positive at the same time, which was impressive. I don't know how you pulled that one off there, Al, but I kind of.
It was a pretty nuanced take. I got to give myself credit for it.
Yeah, pat yourself on the back over there, right? that was good though. I mean, listen, what I do think is important to add to your take, which you basically said without saying, I'm not worried about this team in the regular season per se. Right. My worry is now into the postseason, and even let's just say September, right? Let's say that last month of the season when things tighten up and you're playing, playoff level baseball. They do have a weird schedule this year, something that's been talked about on Mets in Mets World and Mets Twitter, Mets podcast and stuff since the schedule was released. They play the Phillies in the first couple weeks of the season and then don't play them again until the last month of the season, and they play them 7 times, right? So that's a weird thing. That's the type of thing that hasn't gone in the Mets' favor in history, right? We all know what happened last year with the freaking Braves catching us after we led the division for a long time.
The whole season.
All right. We get it.
It was the last day of the season. Just
yeah. All right. Right. So we know this, and maybe it's part of the Mets fans just kind of holding that one thing inside, and some Mets fans aren't as nervous as maybe I am in this regard, but I'm not nervous about the regular season. I think the 91.5 number is based upon the division being so good. And that number is interesting because I think there's a realistic chance that the Braves, Mets, and Phillies can all win over 91.5 games. And that's a very reasonable thing that can happen this year with the strength of how good that top 3 is. With the new schedule and how much you play teams outside of your division and outside of your league, that could be a positive for all 3 of those teams in that regard. So I'm not worried about them right now. I don't have the negativity of saying like this team's going to be on the struggle bus for a big portion of the season. I don't think that's the case. This lineup is too consistent. It's the inverse of the Yankees in that regard, where you see Mark Canha in the 7-8 hole every single day, and you're like, that's a professional level hitter who's going to get on base, who's going to have timely moments, who's going to run into one occasionally and hit 15 home runs, right? That's your 7th or 8th guy. And if some of these, if one of these prospects, Beatty, Vientos, Alvarez, come up this year and make an impact, that changes everything. Because you talked about how the kind of Falefa of the world for the Yankees can be a very good bench piece. You talk about Eduardo Escobar moving from the everyday third baseman to an ultra utility guy. That's kind of what he's always been bred to be. And he's run into some all-star caliber seasons. He had an awesome season for a lot of the season last year. That depth becomes even stronger if one of those guys hit out of the prospects right now. So the depth here is just too good to be worried about them falling on their face and winning 82 games this year. I think that's not even in the conversation. The real question mark for them is going to be the bullpen, which we're going to get to in a moment. from an offensive perspective, will Lindor have 100 plus RBIs again this season? Likely not. We know RBIs aren't predictive, but I think he crossed the threshold. I don't think it's time to be nervous about him anymore. Starling Marte is one of the guys who I love most on this team. He missed a chunk of last year. He might miss a couple weeks again this year. That's okay. He is such a good two-hole hitter that fits so perfectly behind Nimmo. The Nimmo factor is elite. To have him at the top of your lineup is it's like a blanket at night, right? It comforts you, and you know that your guys who are supposed to drive in runs will have those opportunities because of the eye, because of his ability to drive the ball. It's really a team that feels, for a good portion of this season, I don't want to say, unbreakable, but an offense that feels like it's going to have a floor that's very, very high. And I feel very good about that. So I'd be remiss to say I'm only nervous about them not having power. I'm very confident in almost everything except for that one thing, which in my opinion still leads them to over 91.5 wins.
And you have to think that with the shift going away, that since they're a more contact oriented offense, that they're going to benefit a ton from balls landing in there. So the shortage of power might not be a big concern, I feel like, during the regular season, but sometimes in the playoffs when pitching is at its best, that sometimes it's the home runs that absolutely make the difference. But I feel like that the team that the Mets have, opening day today is not going to be the team that they have going into the postseason.
Well, I think the biggest thing that the one thing I worry about is that agreed with everything you just said, but this rotation scares the hell out of me. And that's what I'm sure we're going to talk about right now. Not just the rotation, but the bullpen as well. I mean, you're going to have to account for a lot more runs, in my opinion, because no shot you get 25 to 30 starts out of Verlander and Scherzer. It's just not going to happen. You Carrasco, another one. I keep forgetting his name, the Japanese player that they got recently.
Senga.
You don't know Kodai Senga. You don't know what that's going to be. He could be good. He could be nothing, which is literally every Japanese player that's ever gone. And you have David Robertson, who's 39 years old, closing out your games for you, in a bullpen that has consistently been rocky at best. So they're going to blow a lot of leads, in my opinion. They're going to have to have good pitching depth in the minors that they can call up for game action at a moment's notice, because, again, you have two really old pitchers that are your best pitchers out there. They're like really, really, really old.
So on that front, it really emphasizes the Edwin Diaz loss. I mean, he was the best reliever in baseball last year. Electric. Mm-hmm. We all know the story of how good he was last year. That's tough. We're going to talk about the bullpen in a second. On the Verlander front, for some reason, I don't have the nerves about him missing time like you do Scherzer. Scherzer, you almost chalk it up. He's going to miss a month, right? You almost chalk it up right now. He'll miss a month, but he'll probably be really good when he's out there. So you have that feather in your cap. Verlander, he had the Tommy John, and there's, I heard Trevor Plouffe talking about it. He's like, that guy's got new hardware in there, man. He's going to be cooking for this year. He didn't miss a beat last year. He was elite. He won the freaking Cy Young. I think you easily get the full breadth of starts out of Verlander.
Can I add one caveat to the Verlander thing that I just don't think people are considering in the larger conversation of it?
He's 40.
He's really, really old. But he had a full offseason of rest the year before. He did not have that last year. He had a full season and then a full postseason of him pitching. That's the difference maker here. The recovery time is going to take longer if he gets injured. And he also sucked in the playoffs. I know that the Astros won it, but he was not good in the playoffs at all. No, so I think that he's got a lot of wear and tear on him that he was able to recover from last year that he will not be able to recover from this year.
Yeah, I think, I'm looking at the FanGraph projections for the rotation, and I'm seeing Scherzer at 186 innings, and I'm seeing at Verlander at 179 innings, and I think that's pretty optimistic if you want my opinion. So I think combined they'll have 330 innings, something like that. So if they'll probably pitch anywhere between 150 and 175 innings, each of them. I think Verlander is going to pitch more innings than Scherzer does. But again, I really feel like I feel like the problem with the Mets last year is they thought like they had this two-headed monster going into the postseason in DeGrom and Scherzer, but I feel like Scherzer, they relied on him too much down the stretch because things got so close that he wasn't fresh going into the playoffs. And so I feel like, and again, that's a really good point you brought up, Alec, about Verlander having that extended postseason that, I really feel like they're going to have to lean off some of those guys. And, Verlander's, him and Scherzer are both maniacs. They want to take the ball. They want to throw 130 pitches every single night. And, they were able to do that 5-10 years ago, but that's not, that's just not the case anymore. But
who are you going to sell him with? There's no bullpen, like the bullpen isn't terrible. So you're not going to pull.
Lugo loss sucks, man. Let me tell you.
He's a starter now.
I know. And you know what? Like, you think about what they're missing right now. We talked about some of the additions. We talked about the lineup. We didn't talk about the subtractions. And Seth Lugo probably highlights that mark there where he's not there to be. You called Michael King the fireman for the Yankees. Seth Lugo's been the fireman for the Mets for years. And you turn on a Mets game in the 6th inning and you're like, oh, Lugo's pitching again. Didn't he pitch 8 games in a row? Like, that's what it felt like as a Mets fan, that he pitched like every single day. And losing him really, really stings. The 2 names that we didn't really talk about yet. They do have David Peterson at the end of the rotation right now, and they have Tyler McGill, who's healthy and ready to go. Quintana, we didn't mention, is starting off injured as well. But that all leads us to this Kodai Senga thing that we can't really predict with any validity here, because he can come out and be the best pitcher on the staff, and I don't think anyone would be completely flabbergasted, right? There's a chance that he also comes out and absolutely just flabbergast people for the first half of the season. And then, people figure him out a little bit too. That happens with new pitchers of every ilk, young, international, etc. So Kodai Senga is a wild card that could go in every direction, the best possible outcome and a pretty poor outcome as well. His stuff is so filthy that it feels like the floor is still decent, but that is a real question mark. The Quintana thing stings. Carrasco was solid last year, but Bassett was that innings eater, another subtraction. He was a guy who was never really blowing anybody away. You were never watching a Bassett game saying, my God, this guy needs to be in the All-Star game, or this guy needs to be this or that. But he was always there. Taijuan Walker had a very strong year last year. These are guys that are not here right now. So it's going to be difficult. I do think that when their rotation is healthy, they'll be good, and then they'll have to hold on for dear life at a couple portions of the season, which is not exactly what you want to go into a season with, especially with, like you said, Alec, a rocky bullpen. And to add one more injury to the mix, Bryce Montes de Oca, who has been blowing people away in spring training and et cetera, this big dude who throws absolute smoke, like, he's starting off the year injured too. That's the type of guy who you almost look at and say, oh, he can be the new savior of this bullpen to come in and eat a bunch of innings, eat high leverage moments. And now he's not there. And now Ottavino, Robertson, Drew Smith, Tommy Hunter, like, they're going to be the most relied upon guys in this bullpen. Plus, they have one lefty. They got that's not how it's supposed to be, right? So the pitching staff concerns for the Mets definitely do exist, and they're going to have to hold on for dear life. And to your other points, Steve's going to have to do something about it at some point during the season.
Yeah. I wouldn't, again, Brooks Raley is their lefty, and he was great in Tampa, so I really like that addition as well. I like him more as like your 6th, 7th inning guy, not your probably your 8th inning guy, because Ottavino, again, is more of a matchup guy than you want to throw him out there for make sure 3 outs against the top of the lineup. So again, losing the best reliever in baseball is always going to suck. But, again, Seth Lugo's, departure, and I'm really surprised that he's actually like the number 5 starter for the Padres, but we'll see how that goes. But losing him, losing him is a real tough blow for the bullpen. But again, once the people are ready to make trades or people are ready to dump salary, Steve Cohen's gonna give them the okay. But it's just about surviving to that point. But again, if Verlander or Scherzer gets hurt, or guys aren't giving them at least a little bit of the length in the rotation, that's going to really show the underbelly of the Mets bullpen. It's just a recipe for a lot of frustrating losses early on in the season.
And real quick, Alec, just to add this one more thing. With the current constitution of this rotation, it's so important for them to get off to a good start. Because you just mentioned, Drew, how, if they're not going deep early, I'm almost less worried about that. I'm more worried about June already, right? I'm more worried about July already because I think they're healthy right now. There's no signs of them coming into the season slowed down, right? So if Verlander and Scherzer and Senga are reeling to start this season, they need to get out to a Yankees 2022 type start. That will be what kind of saves them from some of those injuries. And I think that, we obviously try not to overreact too much to the first week of a season, but for that first month and a half of the season, they need to get out to a well above 500 start, be on pace, but realistically better than the Braves and Phillies to start this season off. And that will allow them to deal with a Scherzer missing a month, to deal with a Verlander missing a month. Because other than that, if they start off slow and then have that, that's where Bad News Bears comes in and they end up 87 wins, wild card 3, playing a stud team in the first round of the playoffs for another exit.
I think that I want to temper expectations for the first 3 weeks to the first month or so of the season, because this is going to be a wacky first month of the season. You're going to see a lot of weird shit because there's a ton of new rules that are completely different than what a lot of these players are doing, because they reduced they incentivize people to teams to do the service time manipulation. There's a lot of young guys that are opening day roster, and you had the World Baseball Classic, which screwed up a lot of things in terms of teams seeing the full picture of what their teams look like, younger guys seeing what the full competition slate looks like. I think that's going to impact things, right? Like the younger pitchers weren't facing Kyle Schwarber or Jose Altuve or whatever it was in spring training, and they don't have a full idea. So that on top of like the balanced schedule, I think it's going to be wacky for the first week. I think you're going to see a team like, I don't know, the Kansas City Royals go off to a crazy hot start. Like, oh my God, are the Royals actually good this year? And then 2 or 3 months of the season, you say, no, okay, everything starts to balance out. But I think my old adage of, the April losing winning the way that I always frame it, holds a little less water this year going into it, because it's going to be very, very different than any other for April that has come before in baseball history.
The only guys I've only had a couple of, especially guys that play deep into the World Baseball Classic, only had like a week or, week and a half to be able to get adjusted to the pitch clock and, the shift and all that stuff. And, I don't think it's going to take that much time to adjust, but I feel like, there's just some guys who historically that are slow pitchers, or that guys that like to step out in the box and adjust their batting gloves. I feel like there's going to be a lot of mental gaffes in like the first month of the season. Again, if the Yankees lose on like a pitch clock violation one game, I'm pretty sure I'm going to through my shoe through like through a television. I needed a TV in the basement anyway, so I'm ready for it. But that's besides the point.
Blame it on Jack. Say his arm's getting stronger.
Yeah, no, kid's a beast.
Well, I'm hoping that Buck Showalter is one of the leaders in the MLB manager front to manipulate these rules in his favor. That's something that can be looked at. If there's anyone out there to kind of push his guys to try some different things to work within these new rules, I think Buck's one of those guys. So I'm hoping that's the case. But we are going along already as we expected fully on this full Mets-Yankees mega preview that we just pulled off here. So why don't we run through? Actually, any last words on the Mets? Let me just say that. Anything? Over under 91.5.
Oof, that's tough.
I'm
going to go over. I think they get 92 wins.
All right, 92 wins. I didn't look at the bands for them like I did the Yankees. Let's look at that really quickly here. For the New York Mets, we got between, where are the Mets? Here we go. Between 92 and 97 is plus 260. Between 86 and 91 is plus 270, which if you like the under in general, if you like the under 91.5, 86 to 91 is a good range at plus 270. I must say that. 98 to 103 is plus 400. That's where they were last year. 104 or more plus 750, 85 or fewer plus 290. So those are the odds for the bands. Anything jump out there? Would you like the 92 to 97 at plus 260 Al, or do you like the 86 to 91 at
No,
plus
I love this the slightly over the 92 to 97. I love that.
Yeah, I'm a fan of that as well. I'm going to take the over on the Mets. I do think the lineup is just so solid that regular season wise, and I have enough faith in Verlander and Scherzer. I'm going to go over 91.5, plus 170 to win division. Alec, you said you don't like that. Drew, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, it's gonna be really tough to win the division. If Verlander and Scherzer, I feel like them winning division lays solely on the backs of Verlander and Scherzer. If they are what they are hyped up to be, I feel like they're the two best pitchers in the division, and they can carry the Mets to the division. If they are 30, 37, 30, or I think Scherzer's going to be 39 this year. He's 39, and Verlander, turns 41 this year. They're those aged pitchers, and they're slightly less than what they were. I think you can be, unfortunately, second place to the Braves this year. Again, it really depends on Scherzer and Verlander whether or not they make the
You don't think the Phillies?
or whether or not they win the division. I feel like the Phillies got hot, and the Phillies making the World Series has overhyped them a little bit. Again, their offense is great. Their defense everywhere, like Nick Castellanos is not. They have like 4 DHs in that lineup. I mean, they did add Trey Turner, and Trey Turner's absolutely he's my
top 5 player in baseball.
Yeah, he's my pick for NL MVP. But at the same time, you have like 3 or 4 DHs in that lineup, and they just lost Hoskins for the year with his ACL injury. So
yeah.
Again, and then if you want to talk about a bad bullpen, talk about the Phillies bullpen with Craig meltdown Kimbrel in the 9th inning there. So
Anthony Dominguez will get that spot.
Yeah, and the Phillies will be good, but they're not living up to made it to the World Series somehow in 2022 hype. They'll make the playoffs, but they're the 3rd best team in the division, and I can say that pretty confidently.
I'll eat a hat.
I got to see if there is a bet here somewhere where you can bet on 3 teams from the NL East or 3 teams from any division for that matter to make the playoffs, because I think that the NL East is a prime candidate for that bet. The odds might not even be that good. With the Mets at minus 380. I'm sure the Phillies have minus odds as well for that number. But all right, that's a Yankees preview. That's a Mets preview. Let's run through very quickly some awards predictions as we always do for funsies. I don't have who we picked last year because I mean, somebody probably picked Judge.
Both definitely picked Judge.
Yeah, I think we actually definitely picked Judge. So good for us. Good job, us. Let me run through the AL MVP odds super quick. The buy and away favorite, Shohei Ohtani at plus 190, Mike Trout plus 450, Judge at plus 500, Julio Rodriguez, who is the apple of everybody's eye right now,
baby,
plus 700 on an exciting Mariners team. You are on Alvarez 1100, Vlad Guerrero Jr. 1200, Jose Ramirez 1500. Then you get to the plus 2000 and beyond range. Anybody want to shout out their take for AL MVP?
I love J-Rod. Love it.
Plus 700, good odds too, right?
Yeah.
He's so exciting. He hits nukes.
That team is low key insane. I mean, their rotation is one of the best in baseball, and their lineup mashes. And they were so much fun to watch last year. And they're so young. They're going to get better this year than they were last year. And they have a full season of Luis Castillo. So I think that I think J-Rod's your guy.
Drew.
I'm gonna go with the really boring pick. I feel, dude, Judge was on another planet. He's not gonna hit 62 again, or he just might actually. Like he's cut down on his strikeout rate. When he first came up to the bigs, he was like a 30 strikeout, like 30% strikeout right now. Like last year, he was down to like 24% strikeout rate. Like crazy. The dude just continues to improve his game and carry the Yankees on his back. And again, I'm not expecting 62 home runs, but I'm expecting him to be an absolute like face of the game superstar again in MLB. And like
no contract there.
Yeah, that's okay. He skipped the World Baseball Classic so he could be prepared to be the Yankee team, and he hit like 410 in spring training. So I'm fully on the Aaron Judge repeating having a bonkers year again last year. Again, 62 home runs is not realistic, but if he hit like 58 again this year, I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever.
His over-under for home runs is 45.5, by the way, for Aaron.
Fucking smash that over so hard.
Yeah. So the obviously plus 190 Shohei odds are not fun. No, like who's taking that, right?
It's all about the narrative. He doesn't have the narrative anymore.
Well, he didn't win it last year. So, and now
but he won 2 years ago. That's why I don't think that's another reason I don't think Judge will win it is that the narrative's not there anymore. He had so much going for him. Freddie Freeman last year, the year before, like there's always narratives that go into these things, into these awards, and I think that really goes against people like Ohtani and Judge, and it goes in the favor of a newcomer like a J-Rod.
Yeah, I do think it goes in
Judges
the favor.
If it's September and judges the possibility of passing 62 in September and doing that back-to-back years, that's a pretty big.
You're setting yourself up for disappointment if you think he's getting 62 again, man.
Dude, he's not doing that. I feel he's gonna have high 50s again. Like I think he's got
like 40, 45, 46.
Well, time will tell. I'm excited to watch Judge and some judging and blast, if you will.
Monster dongs.
Monster dongs left and right. I do think that, and I will say this to slightly piss off Alec, but also because I do think it fits your own point that you just made. There might be a little Mike Trout juice this year. 450. He hasn't won an MVP in what, like 4 or 5 years at this point, and he obviously
he'd have to deserve it though. He'd have to earn it though. Like
he'd have to earn it. And with all this buzz of how everybody's made fun of him and made fun of the Angels, if he just puts up silly numbers and plays 148 games this year, like there's a chance that he can take it again. Plus 450, the odds are. I'm just saying, I want to throw it out there.
He's not playing 148 games. He hasn't done that in like 10 years.
Yes, also true. But I just want to throw it out there.
He's got to be healthy.
The narrative could go in his favor as somebody who was made fun of all summer or all winter and now is like a beast again and blah, 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 whatever. Anyways, moving on to the NL MVP. Juan Soto leads the way at plus 550, the highest odds by far, but nowhere near the Shohei number at plus 190. Trey Turner plus 800. Acuna 850. Mookie Betts 900. Tatis, welcome back, plus 1,000. Nolan Arenado 1,400. Machado 1,500. Freeman, Alonso, Goldschmidt also at 1,500. Austin Riley at plus 1,600. And then down to the Matt Olsons and Lindors and Schwarbers at the plus 2,500 and beyond. What's the NL MVP take from you guys?
I like Trey Turner. I said it before, but Matt Olson or Austin Riley at plus 1,600 intrigues me a lot. He's a ridiculous player that nobody's like actually talking about all the time. Like I know Mets fans see him all the time because they play him, but man. As someone who's not invested that much in the NL East, like he's such a good player. Like that's a very intriguing at plus 1,600.
I love Trey Turner. Can I give a fun pick that I don't think will turn out, but it's great odds on it if he does? Schwarber, baby. I love Kyle Schwarber on that team.
Plus 3,000.
He mashes home runs, dude, and he's got so much protection in there. I'm sure he's going to be batting cleanup for the majority of the year since Bryce Harper's out there, and that's a line of a death over in Philadelphia. So I love that if you're trying to if you want to throw like $5 and get a huge reward on it, that's your guy.
And also DraftKings pulling a fast one over here. Bryce Harper on the board at plus 3,500. It's gonna miss
crazy.
Gonna miss 50 games. Like
wow, it's insane.
But yeah, so that's that. I do think that there's like last year, if you think about the Pete Alonso arc last year, he was having an awesome first half of the season. And then it was kind of neck and neck, slightly overshadowed by the Goldschmidt numbers. Like, oh, who's the best first baseman in the NL? Is it Freeman? Is it Alonso? Is it Goldschmidt? And with how great Alonso's RBI numbers, power numbers, average numbers were, Goldschmidt was better, right? So plus 1,500 for any of those first basemen is not bad. Arenado was also insane last year. Him and Goldie in the same infield was nuts. So I don't know. I don't feel great about any of these numbers. Like Mookie doesn't feel like an MVP guy at this point in time, even though he's awesome. Acuna has never gotten one. He could be a guy who can have a season and put it together at plus 850. So I guess I'll go Acuna. I don't know. I don't have a strong take on it.
I'll tell you one thing. I hate Juan Soto for that pick.
plus 550. Yeah, he had a weird year last year. You think he gets more settled in San Diego. They had a little run in the playoffs. Maybe that gives him some juice, but
something's going on in San Diego. They never perform at the level you think that they're going to perform.
I mean, except for the playoffs last year where they performed pretty well. Or they outkicked
just against the Mets.
Well, they beat the Dodgers too.
Oh, that's right. They did beat the Dodgers.
Yeah, they beat the Dodgers. So yeah,
Dude, I'm not sold on their rotation though. Like, do you know?
Seth Lugo
again,
in their rotation.
it's Seth. Their 4 and 5 is Michael Wacha and Seth Lugo, and like Nick, like Darvish is
2017 either.
Yeah, Darvish is fine, but then you have Snell, Nick Martinez, Wacha, and Seth Lugo. Like that's not a good.
Terrible rotation.
That's a terrible rotation.
It's terrible. Stinks out loud.
But like their lineup, especially once they get Tatis in there, is just going to be dumb. So I mean, it's
until Tatis gets suspended again.
Well, hopefully that doesn't happen. I am excited to watch him play baseball again. Completely frank, like we missed that last year, to be honest. So, all right, Cy Young quickly. AL Cy Young. DeGrom is the leader in the clubhouse here, plus 550. Speak about guys who haven't played full seasons. I mean, DeGrom hasn't pitched a full season since his last Cy Young, which he did also win a couple Cy Youngs in a good stretch there. So it's not crazy, but I'm shocked that he's got the best odds here, plus 550. Garrett Cole, plus 650. Alex Manoah, 800. Dylan Cease, 900. Bieber, 950. Rodon on the IL at plus 1,000. Not the greatest start. Shohei Ohtani, plus 1,200. McClanahan, 1,200. Framber Valdez, 1,500. Gausman, 16. Robbie Ray, 16. Castillo, Gilbert, Christian Javier. I'm not going to read every name, so that's about it for the top guys. What do you guys like for AL Cy Young?
Give me Cole, baby. This is the year that he puts it all together for us. He has never been a bad pitcher for us. I think the reports of his demise are over-exaggerated. I think he's awesome. He is a number one in New York. He's consistent. He will get you 200-plus innings this year. In a league that doesn't do that anymore. He's got amazing strikeout numbers. All of his advanced analytics are great. The one bugaboo has always been home runs. I think he's a guy that adjusts to the new rules really well, and I think that's going to screw over a lot of players. I haven't picked any other Yankees on this, and I won't pick it for Rookie of the Year either. So sneak preview there, but I think Cole's got it this year.
Yeah, I feel like Cole is my other pick, but I feel like DeGrom has a lot to prove, especially leaving New York and being able to take that big contract and be able to go out and prove that he's healthy. But I feel like he's going to do that, so he's my pick. He's my boring pick, but I like Ohtani's at plus 1,200 for Ohtani. He should have finished in the top 3 in the Cy Young last year, and he was crazy. And again, coming off of the World Baseball Classic when he threw like. The slider he threw to Trout to strike him out at the end of the game, like the grading on the slider, it's a 20 to 80 scale. They rated it an 81 on the slider on the 20 to 80 scale that they struck out Trout with. Like he's a better pitcher than what people give him credit for. So my pick is DeGrom, but I sneakily like 1,200 for a plus 1,200 for Ohtani as well.
I kind of love that because it's also a contract year.
That matters. The Shohei thing feels good too, because it's also a way if he just has an electric pitching season to not give him the MVP, but give him the Cy Young kind of, because like he is right there with Judge as the face of baseball right now. Like it just is. He's the biggest story.
That's the craziest thing. So if he's in the top 3 in the Cy Young voting, but then he also hits like 30 bombs, steals 25 bags, It's a literal cheat code, and the Angels will still finish with 78 wins.
and he'll be off the team next year.
Yes, and he'll be in the Mets.
It'll be a Dodger or a Met.
Mets.
They said it's I was reading reports from like reputable folks. They said it's a foregone conclusion he's going to New York one way or the other. So we'll see how that goes.
See him in orange and blue next year. Can't wait.
Well, they're saying Mets or Yankees. Whatever.
I can't see.
Whatever you will pay, Steve will pay triple. It doesn't matter.
I can't see how giving him $400 million, which is what it's going to cost to get Ohtani.
I think he goes to whatever team. If that's the case, he goes to whatever team has a better record and a better future for the next year. I don't think it's about money at that point.
If you want to laugh, 2022 WAR from Baseball Reference, Judge had the highest for hitters at 10.6, which he had the silly year. We all know it. Ohtani was 2 for hitters at 9.6, and then he was 3 for pitchers. This is not just AL. This is whole MLB at 6.2. It's just silly. It's just absolutely silly. My pick for AL Cy Young, I'm going to go Shane Bieber, plus 950. The Guardians are a solid team. He had that year that you kind of needed from him last year, right? He had a couple years where he had fallen off with some injuries and whatnot. He went back under 3 with the ERA last year. The Guardians are going to be good. He might be electric again. He's the type of guy who I can see. He has the pedigree of being in that conversation in the past to be back in it and to make sense. Whereas like a Dylan Cease on the White Sox, like, is he going to get the buzz, right? We've seen DeGrom win on bad teams or mediocre teams, at least in years past. But like a White Sox, it's not as easy to do that as when you're in New York, even if it's the Mets. So I like Bieber as my pick there, plus 950. For the NL Cy Young odds, we have Sandy Alcantara, who was a stud last year, is a stud. You hate when you see the projections of the series when the Mets are playing Miami and he's pitching. That sucks. They did knock him down a couple times last year, but he's awesome. He's plus 450. Corbin Burns plus 550. Verlander, number 3 at 600, followed by Max Scherzer, number 4 at 800. Alec. Spencer Strider plus 950. Max Fried 1,000. Zach Gallen, Zach Wheeler, Aaron Nola, all in the low thousands. Brandon Woodruff and Julio Urias getting us to plus 2,000 and then beyond. What's the NL Cy Young take?
I like Zach Gallen a lot. He's been an incredibly underrated pitcher out in Arizona. He took a huge step forward last year. He started off his career like super hot. Like he threw like his first, I think it was like his first like 17 starts where he didn't give up more than like 2 runs or something crazy like that. And he's super underrated. I feel like this is he takes the next step forward and he finally gets some recognition for the Cy Young Award.
I see a repeat. I think Corbin Burns wins it again this year. I think that season was outrageous, and he's going to do it again. I think you see with Cy Young's less of a narrative-driven award than the MVP and Rookie of the Year. You'll see repeats there, right? I mean, look at DeGrom. What's that?
Did not Contra win it last year?
I thought Corbin Burns won it.
I thought you were going to make a joke and pick Verlander when you said repeat Cy Young winner.
Oh, no. I thought it was Corbin Burns.
Stupid.
Yeah, didn't he win it?
No, it was Alcantara.
Oh, well, then Corbin Burns this year. No repeat. First timer. Let's do it.
Always a first timer. Never repeat.
He finished second. Corbin Burns finished second.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah, Corbin Burns is awesome. That dude rocks. You can look better in that division, although I guess it matters less these days with the balance schedule. But that he's 28 years old. That's a pitcher's prime. That's anybody's prime. But that's, usually you get incrementally better at that point. So I'm all about Corbin Burns.
There were a few Yankee rumors about them and Corbin Burns actually, because I guess they took him to arbitration. The Brewers did, and I guess they trashed him in arbitration, and he came out not saying such nice things about the organization. And they're a team that they're once he gets too expensive that they're going to trade him. So. Yeah. And they're always saying like the Yankees really like Corbin Burns. So
shocker. Yankees like great pitcher.
Yeah, let's be on the lookout for that.
Spencer Strider, interesting guy there, plus 950. Good odds, nasty stuff. I don't have a strong take here. I don't know. Freaking Verlander repeat, whatever. Moving on, Rookie of the Year. American League Rookie of the Year. You mentioned your guy, Gunnar Henderson, top of the odds, plus 265. Masataka Yoshida, plus 500. Volpe, plus 500. Anthony Volpe. Tristan Casas, Royce Lewis, Grayson Rodriguez. Anyone jump out to you guys for the Rookie of the Year in the AL?
I picked Volpe with the E over the E in Volpe. Yeah. No, once he made the opening day roster, I was like, let's build that narrative now. Youngest shortstop to come up since Jeter. Jeter won the AL Rookie of the Year. Let's continue this narrative and the tradition here. So let's go Volpe.
And this could be the rare narrative case where he is a really successful part of a winning team. And even if his WAR is less than some of the guys in his class here, he could get the boost of like, yeah, but his WAR wasn't as good, but he was a key contributor to a 95-win team playing shortstop 150 times, right? Like that could be a narrative boost for him.
But I think the Orioles are going to be a lot better than their projections are, and that could also be a huge narrative.
Mm-hmm.
So
Gunnar Henderson.
I'm looking forward to. I think you're going to have a new Jeter, A-Rod, Garcia Parra type situation with Henderson and Volpe. I know Volpe Henderson's primarily a third baseman, but he's going to play some short there too. He's the number one prospect in baseball. Volpe is the fifth or something like that by most metrics. Some of them have him as high as 3, but Henderson's awesome. He's got power that Volpe doesn't have. He's a really good fielder. He's just everything. He's plus in everything that he does. So the only difference is that he will have less protection than Volpe will have on the Yankees lineup. But I'm really looking forward to it. He's a fun player to watch.
Yeah, and with Wander Franco, and there's a lot of great young middle infielders in that division.
Is he still a rookie? Is he technically still a rookie?
No, he played the full year last year. But I think he's 21 or 20. He's like the same age as Volpe. So
yeah, it's fun. It's great when you have guys like that all coming up at the same time. It's good for the game.
Absolutely.
On to the NL Rookie of the Year. We have Jordan Walker at plus 360, Corbin Carroll plus 400, Miguel Vargas at plus 700, Kodai Senga plus 950, and Andrew Painter 1100, Ezekiel Tovar 1200. Anyone jump out in the NL?
Isn't Painter hurt? I think he had a major injury.
Might be.
Don't put your money on Andrew Painter.
Broad brush, man. Don't paint with a broad brush. Yes, then don't put your money on him. I'm sorry, I couldn't help it.
I picked Corbin Carroll, dude. The Diamondbacks just extended him for like a 6-year, $110 million deal. I feel like he's like the next big up and coming superstar in the National League. So my bet's on him, and he was my in the group chat. He was my sneaky NL MVP pick for the year. Just like that's how confident I am. I feel like he's gonna like come burst onto the scene and be an absolute stud.
I guess I'm going chalk for both my Rookie of the Year picks. I think Jordan Walker that dude rocks. Big dude, 6'6", huge guy. Looks like he plays in 1976. Like just his vibe to him. He's a fun player to watch too. And the Cardinals are a great organization. Lord knows he'll have protection in that lineup too, between like the people we were talking about before. I think he's gonna run away with it, to be honest with you.
I'm gonna go.
Carroll's great too.
I'm going Homer. I'm going Senga. I think there's a slim chance, and for the odds at plus 950 being double the price or double the payout as those two guys you guys picked, like there's a chance that he's a stud, right? And if you're looking for a chance,
Hideki Matsui
plus Ichiro. 9, yeah, exactly. Like if you're looking for that spark plug chance of plus 950 hitting, again, I said this during the Mets preview portion. If he comes out and throws a 2.4 ERA and strikes out a ton of people and makes people look silly, no one's going to be shocked. Just like they're not going to be shocked if he struggles and has a 3.5, 4.0. Like 4.0 would actually be kind of shocking. But you get what I'm saying. If he comes out and is a stud and is relatively close to the Cy Young conversation, I don't think it's going to be like a flabbergasting. Not saying he's going to be like a top 3 guy in the Cy Young. But if he's like, I mean, would you sincerely be like, I can't believe this if he's throwing a 2.2 ERA into the half point?
I would be shocked. I think outside of Ohtani, who is the outlier of all outliers, when was the last time a Japanese pitcher came in and just shoved? Yu Darvish 10 years ago, 12 years ago, something like that. They have almost entirely fizzled out in the past.
But there hasn't been like a ton of top tier
high end. Yeah, he was a very much a high end pitcher in Japan. So like
you can't think of them because they haven't even been options. Like there hasn't been.
No, that's not true. Kenta Maeda was a really big time guy coming over here. Yusei Kikuchi was a really big time guy coming over here. Those are 2 people right off the top of my dome. So stick that in your pipe and smoke it.
Maeda had moments. For
yeah,
sure.
Exactly. He has moments, but like they were big time guys overseas, and they came here and they were fine at best.
They didn't throw 100.
No, but I'm just saying, dude. Like historically, Japanese pitchers. It's much worse with pitchers than it is hitters. They consistently struggle here. And if you take Ohtani out of it, which you have to, because he again is the biggest outlier of all outliers. Yu Darvish is the last good Japanese player last good Japanese pitcher that's come through in the past 15, 20 years. It's been really slim pickings. Daisuke Matsuzaki was the best before that. Tanaka.
I was gonna say you throw your boy Tanaka just to the wolves like that. It's kind of messed up.
But Tanaka was like, for what he was still a disappointment in what he turned out to be. He was,
Yeah. He wasn't a Cy Young guy ever.
No, and
after that elbow injury that was hanging on by a thread for like the rest of his Yankee career, everyone was telling him to have the surgery, and then he still pitched like a number 3 start. He started out as an ace, hurt his elbow, didn't want to get the surgery, and then pitched like a number 3 starter for like the rest of his Yankee career.
Japanese pitchers get hurt a lot because they're not used to the MLB competition. It's different.
Yeah, because they pitch one every six days instead of once every 5.
Right. Exactly. So it affects them. So yes, to answer your initial question, if he had a 2.2 ERA at the All-Star break, I would be absolutely flabbergasted, to use your word.
Flabbergasted. I said that like 4 times in this episode.
You did. I've been laughing.
I did rub onto you in one other way. I heard you say Anthony Volpe at the end of this podcast, by the way.
Yeah, I slipped up. I didn't like it. Don't rub up on me.
That's good. All right. Well, that's all we have. I mean, we went off right there. Mega Yankees preview, Mega Mets preview, MVP, Cy Young predictions, etc. Last thing I ask of you, what are the expectations for the Super Mario Brothers movie, Alec?
I was just talking to our mutual friend Mike about this earlier. This might be the highest grossing movie of all time if you consider everything that's going on. Children's movies always make a ton of money because everyone can go see them. It's got a huge built-in multi-generational audience. It's an incredibly well-known and beloved IP. And it's connecting into a larger universe. Like they're clearly trying to build out a Super Smash Brothers universe because you can tell with the Donkey Kong stuff. If this comes out and it has like an 88% on Rotten Tomatoes or higher, this is going to be a top 5 grossing movie of all time, without a doubt in my mind.
and it is incredibly worldwide already.
Yes, exactly. It overseas. It's going to absolutely kill.
Oh yeah, Japan is gonna be destroyed. And this is gonna be Jack's first movie. I'm taking him to have a little father-son bonding time to go see the movie. I doubt he'll have the attention span to actually sit through the whole thing. So I won't know how it ends, but I'm excited. I'm excited to go and check it out with him.
Well, please give us a report because 2 adults and Pete and Alec are going to see it on Tuesday or Wednesday, whatever day it is. I forget.
Yeah, me, Pete, and another friend are going to see it opening night.
Nice.
Oh, we're going on opening night?
Oh, yeah. Big time.
Oh, that's super hype. I'm so pumped about that. No doubt. All right. Well, that's all I needed from you guys. That's so great. Thank you so much, as always, for spending the time with us. We went 1 hour and 45 minutes, which is, I think, the perfect amount of time to spend on such a colossal episode. I mean, I'm not lying. This is one of the best episodes we do every single year. So home runs from both of you designated hitters, for Alec Argento, for Andrew Calagna. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Subway Sports Talk. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, review on your podcast app, as well as subscribe, hit the notification bell on YouTube. Follow on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Subway Sports Talk. My personal is Pete Kennedy with 2 Y's on the end at _Swallows Barkley for Andrew Calagna, and at ABJax828. Who are you private nowadays? You kind of switch.
I'm public.
Public, bro. Follow him. Tweet him.
Don't cancel me.
Or do. No, I'm kidding. All right. Subway Sports Talk. Thanks for listening. We will talk to you soon. Got some exciting Knicks stuff on the way. We got some baseball, real baseball. No offense to the World Baseball Classic, but real regular. You know what I'm saying. All right. Cheers. That's all I got. Bye.
See ya.